you do these high rep sets day in, day out. You know, like 3 or 4 days ago, I was saying how good I felt every single day, basically. And I have been feeling great. However, there is a price to pay with these things. Sometimes you don't really see them, directly. It's not as obvious. But there's a price with this metabolic stress business type of training. So there's two kind of ideas of like fatigue in training. There's that central nervous system fatigue, when you're handling really heavy weights. And then there's the other extreme, which is kind of like metabolic, stress. Obviously, there's a blend of both in any training that you do. But if you're loading up really high intensities, you're going to have that central nervous type of stress or fatigue. When you're doing sets of like pig squats and sets of 30, 20 and all that breathing squat business, that has kind of like a different side to it. So for instance, I'll tell you guys straight up, when I was doing all those days of, working up to a single and maybe a couple of back off sets with doubles or triples, pure central nervous system training, strength training, my appetite was never affected. I just basically lived a normal life, slept normally. If I over pushed it, I just kind of felt lethargic some days and sleepy, and that was it. With metabolic stuff, like the high rep stuff, I feel great. I'm eating a whole bunch of food. I thought I was eating enough food, but there's also kind of other things happening. Because you are burning more fuel, your immune system ends up copping it a little bit, especially if you're kind of going to that deficit in your kind of diet. You up the volume in training, you don't up the volume in your diet, in your calories. All of a sudden you're in a deficit. And sure, you can be in a deficit for some time. Depends how hard you push it. The liver stocks a whole lot of energy there, and there's fat stores and whatever. I'm like 20% body fat, right? So there's plenty to go. But if you're day in, day out doing this stuff, it's kind of like you go into a different kind of energy system, I guess. And with that it's a stressor to the system, and you become more susceptible to disease, to viruses, to all sorts of stuff around you. Especially if you don't sleep enough, and especially if you've got young kids who are, who got drool, snot running down their face and whatever, they're coughing and spitting, and you're kissing them every day. The chances increase for each of those things. So that's kind of what happened with me. I jumped on this, high rep stuff, and I've been feeling great every single day. And then middle of the night, I wake up with a sore throat, and I'm like, come on, man, like what's going on? So today I've come in and I was like, okay, I really need an easy day. I'm not going to do crazy stuff. So I came in, hit 5 sets with a barbell of 10, went to 60 kilos. I did 5 sets of 10 with that, with 60 kilos. And basically that was the session. I was in the garage for some time, and I was kind of flicking through the notes, because it's kind of like, I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of training today. I'm used to like really getting after it last few days. Today is just basically a walk in the park. And so I just kind of sat there, I was flicking through the pages, looking at the kind of the highlights this year, and kind of looking at what's worked this year. And automatically I go on to the January and I think it was the April or March periods. Those are kind of the highlights. January period was RDLs, heavy RDLs. The kind of March, April, around March, I reckon it was day 800 or something like this. I was around doing those marching exercises, and this is where I ended up hitting really high, sets of 5, like 8 sets of 5, 180 kilos, that kind of stuff. Like there was a video I did for day 800. It was kind of in memory of Kobe Bryant, number 8 Lakers jersey. I wore that and I spoke about that. And in that video on that day, I did 8 sets of 5. And I'm looking through the journal, I'm looking through what I wrote, how I felt. And in that period, I was kind of heavily thinking about hip flexors, heavily thinking about anterior core, and I was feeling really good around that period. Obviously, I've spoken about this before. There's decay happening from exercises from previous months, and you can't really associate what you're doing on the particular day or even week or 2 weeks, because you could have the effects that are happening from the exercises that you were doing 2 months ago. So anyway, I'm sitting there, I'm kind of doing that, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to be pushing the front squats, back squats, anything today. So I ended up doing a few marching sets. I ended up doing like 5 sets or something. And, really I wanted to do some RDLs as well. So I was basically just kind of like walking around in the garage, kind of brainstorming and just playing around. I really enjoy these days. I've spoken about these types of days, a number of occasions where you're coming in and you're not going to be working hard. You're basically auto-regulating your day kind of backwards. You're going to go for a kind of rest day, active rest day, and this is where your brain just lights up, because you're not in the trenches of war, like, working through a set of 50 or something like that. You're not actively thinking about training for that day. You're thinking about kind of like a zoomed out approach, and these days serve that for me. And so I'm flicking through the pages of the log, of the journal, and I'm kind of just contemplating all these different ideas. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be really cool if I combine all of these ideas? So if I just go back like 2 years and I make a list of everything that I think has worked, right? And now obviously it's really hard to kind of make links and be like, oh yeah, definitely it's the marching that's done everything. But when you write these exercises down on a piece of paper, maybe you can draw some similarities between them. Maybe there is kind of like there's a common thread amongst them. I've for a long time felt that something about the posterior chain feels good to me. Something, I don't know what it is. If I do deadlifts, if I do RDLs, if I do rack pulls, good mornings, things of this nature, GHD, back raises, 45 hypers, anything like that has me feeling good. It always has me feeling good. And, it's not so much that I prefer one or the other. I just kind of been through them, and I've had good periods regardless of what I've done. So that's one thing. Then there's the thing of high reps. Okay, so that's always produced really good results for me. With an asterisk next to it, please don't get sick. So if you push this stuff, too hard, you're going to get sick. And we all know once you get sick, you basically can wipe out a whole freaking month around that. Because the recovery process, dehydration, all that stuff, like how quickly you're going to get back to it. I had COVID earlier this year, and that threw a spanner in the works, man. Like basically, I have not hit 260 on a deadlift since then. Whether that's related to that or my training programming or my ideas or what I'm doing, I don't know. But getting sick is not the ideal thing. So we all want to get stronger in the gym, but you don't want to go 3 steps back with sickness or injury for that matter, right? Those are the true enemies of our training. So I believe in the last 4 or 5 days and last week, I'll say it, I reckon I've overdone it. I've overtrained, or I have under-recovered. You can use both of those things. So you apply the dose of training, okay, but the dose of calories needs to be equal. Because if those two levels are not the same, something's got to give, man. Something has to give. And so I think, in my honest opinion, in the last few days, I have not eaten enough. Doing stuff around the house, in the backyard, I'm on annual leave right now, so I want to do a couple of things around the house or whatever. And I go to the gym and I go straight into the backyard, mow the lawn, cut some bushes around, do some weeding. All of a sudden, I'm like, damn, I haven't eaten. It's been like 4 or 5 hours since I've last eaten. And I've just come from a set of 50 and a set of 40 and a set of 30. And this is kind of where you kind of get out of, you get caught up. So it needs to be a balance. Posterior chain, I've got high reps. I've got this crazy period with marching. I don't even know what marching is. I don't know why it's worked in that period. Maybe it's masking some other effect. I'm not sure. But that's kind of what I've written down, a list of things on a piece of paper. And I just sat there and I'm kind of like basically like staring into a wall, as I'm thinking about all this stuff. And it just occurred to me, man, I love this stuff. Even on days where I'm not really doing much. I love to think about this stuff. I like to do this stuff. I love to talk about this stuff. I'm a happy chappy, I must say. Even on days like this when I'm not really having fun moving the weight around. But anyway, guys, that's my day basically. Shorter video because shorter training session. And I really want to spare you guys a black screen, so we'll continue this in the next episode, I guess. Appreciate you guys on the list, on the DMs, on the comments. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.